Good afternoon, friends. This is a follow-up to a article I wrote this morning. This is Dr. Scalise. This is The Edge, Apologetics of Tomorrow. Welcome, friends. This is a presentation coordinated with Black Tulip Studios and the Well-Mannered Monsters podcast. You will find this show there on the podcast, but also embedded with the article on the Apologetics website, Apologetics of Tomorrow. So today we're talking about transhumanism, near-death documented consciousness, and the afterlife. This is actually part 2. And specifically, we're looking at these items because of what the World Economic Forum has done and what they're trying to advance. But specifically today, though, we're going to be talking a little bit about the eugenics of the issue. So I have written the article. It's about a 10-minute, 11-minute read. And if you can't... maybe if you're vision impaired or what have you, I've read it out. You can actually listen to the article if you want as well. This is added commentary because sometimes this stuff is so complex, almost academic, really, because it's just the type of stuff that these guys are talking about. I'm not sure that it's easily digestible. So transhumanism, friends, is the desire to see humanity ascend to a new level of its evolution, if you believe in evolution in the traditional sense, or if you understand it in more of a colloquial sense, just in the idea of humanity rising, right? This kind of supremacy of humanity moving upward. But the World Economic Forum, they really have a eugenicist campaign on their hands. They really want to remove the biology of humanity. They want to take our biology, our body, and remove it. You might say, where do they get such a crazy idea? Well, if you've been watching the Amazon show Upload, then you know that they're already trying to get this prepped in the culture so that you're ready to accept it. And by that, I mean, in that show, you literally can upload your consciousness. Now, you might also be asking yourself, where did they get this idea from? So, interestingly enough, there's an academic journal called the Studies, and I want to say it's near-death occasions or near-death experiences. I will be doing another article specifically on that in the future, though. But for 42 years now, they've been documenting scientific evidence of consciousness while brain dead on the operating table. So what happens in these situations is this person's brain dead, so totally dead in terms of their body, yet they'll have consciousness of something that's happening while they're dead, and they'll come back and they'll report what they had consciousness of. Sometimes it's far away, even. You had a very big time out of body experience, and then people will report this, and then they'll go and they'll corroborate whether it was true or not, what they saw was actually happening or not. And for 42 years, they've been recording these. And so at this point, there's a tremendous amount of, I shouldn't say tremendous, but there's enough scientific data that says that consciousness apart from the body is a norm. It is what is to be expected, maybe. That the spiritual people, the religious people, they've been saying that, disembodied, your soul leaves your body or your spirit. And we'll talk about that in the future as well. But, and you have this consciousness that then moves on to a new body, right? So if the Christian scriptures, 1 Corinthians 15 says you move on. Basically, God gives you a brand new body. So you may be a disembodied consciousness, maybe it's for a very brief moment, maybe not at all. Who knows what that looks like exactly? But the notion of a disembodied consciousness and moving between bodies, that is already normal and part of the long heritage of spirituality on a global scale, but specifically of the Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Now, it's not unimportant, and I'm not saying that, this fella, he's basically the prophet. He wrote a book called New Religions of the 21st Century. Yuval Harari, he's Israeli. I'm not saying that they're taking a page out of the religious playbook at all. Matter of fact, I would find these people to be starkly anti-religious, anti-God, even on the atheist end of things. But what they can take a page out of a playbook from is from these near-death documented consciousness. And of course, if they have scientific data now that's saying that consciousness is possible apart from the body, then it's only a small step to say, let's make this materially possible in a way that's controllable by humanity. Namely, let's determine, right, the human mind is a bunch of a neurological network of electrical impulses. Let's figure out how to map that into a digital form. Let's take human consciousness and digitize it and upload it, and in some sense maybe even present this mock or false notion of eternality. Now, the notion that disembodied consciousness is possible allows for them to advance the idea of non-biological life. This is what Yuval Harari says is going to be given birth to soon, and that this non-biological life is going to be humanity either digitized or cyborg. And we'll talk it, and there might be different levels, right? If you're one of the elites, maybe you get the fully digitized form. If you're not, if you're more of the peasant class, maybe you only get the cyborg treatment where, part of your biology gets taken away, but not all of it. They want to make sure you still die, etc. So now, the reason why this is wild is because it's really a radical new step, a novel step in eugenics, and it's a frightening step. Traditionally, eugenics has to do with ethnic cleansing or removing of certain races. Planned Parenthood, for instance, was founded by a woman who hated the black race, and she wanted them to be removed. You can find lots of quotes about this. I won't cover that now because I've covered it elsewhere. But they want to purify, right? So traditional eugenics is to remove undesirable traits of humanity that's associated with specific races and or classes, and only allow for the reproduction of the human, species, certain races, what have you, that are desirable. So the World Economic Forum says that's not far enough. We need to take it to the next level. We're not okay. We don't care about races or classes even. What we're interested in is putting off humanity. Humanity itself, its biological, what they call restrictions, are the problems. In this sense, they want to say that it's going to give blossom. It's going to blossom into a non-biological life. Now, note here, so put an asterisk, a footnote, what have you, that whenever you talk about biology and life, they're synonyms, they're synonymous, they go together. There is no such thing as life that isn't biological, unless, again, take a page from the playbook of the religious people, the spiritual people, and they would say, angels, God, what have you, right? So there's these ideas of non-biologically situated minds, so God, right? We don't think God is material, etc. That's possible. And so again, although the World Economic Forum probably is utterly hostile to traditional ideas of God, they are borrowing from the spiritual and religious playbook in considerable sorts of ways and trying to advance this. And removing human biology while maintaining the consciousness, this is only attainable this side of eternity, at least, if you believe that, if you are a religious or spiritual person, if you can figure out a way to digitize the human consciousness and remove it from its biological restrictions. This is a brand new domain of discussion that we're having right now, not just here in this podcast, but also just generally. I mean, you don't talk about biology and life as separate things. To say that it's non-biological life is really shocking. With the only exceptions being if you're a religious person that believes in other dimensions where God and the angels or demons live, right? Now, to me, this is a horrific notion, because essentially they're saying that we need to remove traditional humanity, and traditional humanity, again, definitionally, is biological. I mean, you don't have non-embodied humans, right? I mean, even this idea of non-embodied humans, that phrase, I mean, that isn't even something that you try to conceive of before the past few years here. But here we are, and the World Economic Forum is talking about the advancement of biotech and computational power, and that the fact that they're able to collect in brand new, ever thorough ways your biometric data, if you let them, and then they have the computational power to have massive data to be able to have it computed. It enables them to at least put out the proposition that we might be on the cusp of digitizing human consciousness, because we now have the data, we have the biometric data, we have the computational power, and we know that they have Neuralinks, right? Elon Musk Neuralink. We know that there's a neurological network of electricity. Electricity is also in cyber or digital components. And so the human mind and digital components aren't that different. So, and the Neuralink's really scary because they figured out a way to, I guess, connect the synapses with a computer outside of the body. So very, this is Terminator type stuff, Warhammer 40K, The Matrix, all of these, they're pretty grim ideas of the future, actually. Almost anything that really plays with the idea of, humanity becoming machines puts it pretty grim. Even something as hopeful as, say, Star Trek The Next Generation has the Borg. So even there, this idea of the humanity being machinized or digitized or becoming AI or what have you, even there, that's a very grim vision for what that might look like. I don't know hardly anyone that plays with it and thinks that it gets better. And the Warhammer 40K universe, basically, they played with artificial intelligence, and it led to this thing called the Men of Iron. And basically, it was massive, just catastrophic disaster, the machines rising up against humanity. And so then from that point forward, they only allowed cyborgs, basically, half humans or some sort of biological base that's integrated with the machines moving forward. Now, why this runaround? It's just because in trying to have a vision of a cyborg or digitized future humanity is often horrific. They really placate you with new shows like Upload on Amazon, which makes it feel kind of happy and funny and interesting. But the proposition, friends, prolonging your consciousness in this world is a frightening idea. If you know the pain of loss, let's say you can't suffer, and let's say you become fully digitized, there's no way for you to physically suffer anymore in a physical sense. It wouldn't remove the pain of loss, though. The psychological impact of data, right? That you could know that something was and is no longer. If you remove the biological components of that, perhaps you no longer feel pain. But over time, I think the vacuity, it becomes vacuous. Meaning becomes vacuous. Let's say as this massive data set that you become piles up, and all of these things that were that are no longer. And we'll come back to this in great detail when we talk about the law of entropy. But as that piles up, it's going to bespeak the other futility of this creation. And whether that pain of loss is, you're going to be a machine at that point. You're not going to feel pain in this traditional sense. Knowledge of loss is going to exist. And I can't but imagine that if you're a computational algorithm, let's say, and over time, as that piles up and as the law of entropy carries on, that the futility of this world, and let's say Romans chapter 8, right, says this world's dedicated to futility, emptiness, endless, basically horror, that's not going to pile up over time. And then, of course, to the chagrin of somebody in the year 3000 or 10,000 or whatever, that's a uploaded human, right? You're going to have to say, damn it, Romans chapter 8 was right again. It doesn't matter how many years into the future I go. That verse about the futility of all creation is still true. So this is interesting, right? So this eugenicist, the ideology that the World Economic Forum has, it is indeed a eugenicide. And it won't be a genocide that involves lots of blood and guts. At least I don't think so. Maybe it would end up that way. I don't think so. I think it would be a eugenicide of omission. Meaning that if they can get enough of humanity to sign on, to give up their biometric data, and then sign on for some level of ongoing surveillance, and then move forward with cryptocurrency idea of a programmable money, they could get that in place, and they can tie your biometrics You going along with these, become a cyborg or become a digitized human who's been uploaded, they can get you to go along with that because then your livelihood's going to be tied to that. And your ability to buy and sell and to have a job and all that's going to be tied to you go along with the system. So, let's push back now and say this is fundamental insanity. If you're a religious person, you might say, I think this smells demonic or what have you. If you're not a religious person, just see it for what it is. It's really creating if they were to succeed, a class of people, let's say these people are evil before they become a digitized human, whatever that looks like. And let's say their morality is now removed. So now you have a psychotic machine, ex-human consciousness that does not end. Does that sound happy to you? It doesn't sound real happy to me. It sounds pretty horrific, actually, and it frightens me. Consider the fact that if you became one of these uploaded person, that you might be stuck in a system with a whole host of psychotic, no emotion, ex-human consciousnesses that could be just awful to be around. I mean, I'm struggling to even describe this because it's so out there, but yet here it is. We're on the edge of it. That's why, apologetics of tomorrow. This is the edge. We are staring down the destruction of traditional humanity in the face of these insane World Economic Forum lunatics who want to remove biological restrictions. They want to take away the body. And again, I'm not entirely happy that they're able to take a page from my Christian playbook. I'm an Orthodox Christian. They could say, well, that whole idea of disembodied consciousness, that makes sense to us because of how they say death happens and moving on to the next life, or because we know God is a disembodied mind, right? That's an idea from Christianity as well. And, if you can have disembodied consciousnesses out there, then there's no reason why humanity can't attempt this if they can get basically our neurological pathways and electronics mapped. I guess it's a matter of mapping and then uploading it. Why not attempt it and then give yourself some mock, albeit false and futile, means of eternality? I mean, if you fear death, if you're really scared of death, a lot of people might line up for that sorts of things. But don't miss it, friends. It is a eugenicide of traditional humanity. It is a genocide of traditional humanity. It is the removal of traditional humanity through a eugenics program that sees human biology as problematic. And the World Economics says, hey, we're going to be the intelligent designers, not some, and Yuval there, Harari points up and says, not some God above the clouds, which nobody believes that in it. Nobody that's a serious believer in God thinks God is above the clouds. Maybe, I guess, if that's Zeus or something from ancient paganism. But with that being said, they think that they are going to be the intelligent designers. They believe in natural selection, but they now believe natural selection by, it's basically natural selection by intelligent design rather than survival of the fittest. And they're going to be the intelligent designers. They are going to be the little g gods that determine the movement of humanity into this next realm of evolution as they see it. And of course, though, even trying to say that this is the ascent or helping humanity evolve into its next thing is almost nonsense. I mean, if you believe in the evolutionary program, that you've come down biologically from whatever apes or whatever you think, right? So I'm not putting any credit into that, just so you know. I've got a lot of thoughts and criticisms of the of natural selection, the fossil record, etc. So we could go into that, but another time. But the point is, let's say you buy into all that. That's great, and you think it's demonstrably scientific. Blah blah blah. Awesome, great. It's biological. It's a transformation for ever greater degrees of biological excellence. That's what and so saying now we're going to cast off the biology and we're going to become disembodied consciousnesses, I'm not sure that is a evolutionary step as much as it seems to be playing with the fundamental building blocks of what makes humans human. Are you even human anymore if you do that? I don't think so. I mean, if you think about some of the things that are tied up with your biology, like your chemicals, which is tied to your emotions, etc. I mean, if you don't have that anymore, do you have emotions? Are emotions then just algorithms based on data sets? It's no longer chemically, chemically played out. So some really big questions here about what it means to be human. Is it appropriate to desire, let's say the World Economic Forum is right, and they can bring humanity into a world of no pain through uploading consciousnesses? Is that a program that is good? And does no pain mean a world of non-futility? I've already argued that that can't be the case. It's still going to be a world of futility, and ultimately, I believe, unbearable. It'll become ever more like hell the longer you exist. But furthermore, I mean, try to imagine being cyborg. Is it going to be the elites get to be uploaded, but you only get a measure of that? I guess digitization. You're kind of like a cyborg. And by the way, they've got us well prepped for it. The fact that you carry your phone around with you everywhere, you let it track you, you let it record you, you take pictures, you provide all the data it needs. Even Apple with their health app have tried to get you to provide your biometric data to them freely. Of course, they're going for the full bore. So, but yeah, the World Economic Forum, I mean, they believe in the Darwinian principle of natural selection. They just replace natural selection with, so not survival of the fittest, but basically the most intelligent designers, which are little g gods, namely the World Economic Forum cohort and their think tanks. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. And again, like, it's idolatrous to call them little g gods, but I mean, possibly. I'm not saying they're actual gods, so understand. I'm just kind of playing with that. But there's big questions about salvation, right? So I mean, even if you don't buy into what the World Economic Forum wants to do, the notion that they're playing with disembodied consciousness already points to notions of afterlife, life beyond the present bodily form. And of course, so this is going to reemphasize religious or spiritual ways of looking at the world. And so for just a moment here, to speak from my Orthodox Christian position, I mean, the book of Hebrews identifies the Christ coming to save people, the children, quote, of the flesh and blood, and that he had to be made like them in every respect so he could be basically a sacrifice on their behalf. So really big, if you remove your body, could you still be part of the salvific campaign of the Christ? Whether you believe in that or not, I don't know if you do or if you don't, but my point to ask the question is, in that program, if you disembody yourself, if you become a consciousness apart from a body, but the Christ program was to save only those who are like him, can a disembodied consciousness then be saved? Or have you entered into a new dimension of existence? You're no longer human, and hence the sacrifice that Christ put up of himself, his own body, blood, and flesh, that wouldn't count for you. So that's probably what I would think, but hopefully this has been interesting to you. You guys can read through the article yourself if you want. I think it's an interesting read. Again, I try to keep them short so you can read them in about 10 minutes. It's not going to kill you. But do understand this is a new wave of religion. And again, Yuval Harari is the author of the book, New Religions of the 21st Century. And these new religions are a kind of death cult for transhumanism. And I call it a death cult only because this program, if they were able to upload human consciousness, is the full-on eugenicide of traditional humanity. You would be removing something that is definitional to making humans human, right? Their biology, including their emotions and chemicals and all that goes into that. I don't even, I'm no expert on that stuff. That's not what my doctorate's in. I know enough about it that I could talk about it a little bit. But, I would love for anyone out there that does have a doctorate or less, you don't have to have a doctorate, whatever, but you might know a lot more about emotions and chemicals and the biology. And I would love to hear about that. Teach me. I mean, just teach me. I would love to hear about it. But big questions about God come out of this, right? I mean, you've got, questions about what makes a human a human, what is the nature of human existence, can the human existence be digitized? If it is digitized, does God still have a relationship with that consciousness, or is that beyond the veil of God's reach? Let's say you're forced to become cyborg or digitized. Are you still within God's saving grace because you were forced? And then obviously the morality and ethics, we're going to have to talk about that another time, because the morality of this is, so far-fetched. We just need to talk a lot about, let's just say rampant technological advance with like virtually no moral or ethical guidance. They might talk about moral and ethical guidance, but the proof is in the existence as it currently is. And the proof is clearly that this ship is totally unmoored and floating recklessly. So technology is just floating recklessly in a sea of immorality or amorality. There isn't anything moral or ethical really guiding any of this. This is just, really Darwinism and natural selection is kind of a moral program to begin with. It's which is why Nietzsche liked it, right? He liked this whole idea of will to power and survival of the fittest. And obviously Hitler took up that idea, and here we are. Now, so that was the 20th century horror. Now we're in the 21st century horror, which has to do with eugenicide in even a more radical sorts of way that would be the elimination of traditional humanity for something that, to my mind, and we'll continue to discuss this, would not be human. And so I don't know what you think. You want to make some comments, that'd be great. Hopefully this added commentary has helped a little bit. I've rambled a bit, but hopefully you've got something out of it. This is presented by Black Tulip Studios. This is The Edge, and this is Apologetics of Tomorrow, Part 2, discussing the World Economic Forum's focus on eugenics and those ramifications for us. This is Dr. Scalise. Thank you so much.